Yeah. Johannes, your work deals with history, memory, and resistance in the forms of free presentation. Your latest film, Die vergangenen Zukünfte, Past Futures, from 2021, it's a feature-length film, discusses the nature of revolution, exemplified by exploring the legacy of the so-called March Revolution in Vienna in 1848. You not only visit through two fictional characters acting as urban archaeologists, the hidden places and monuments of the March Revolution, but you also record the recent years of political demonstrations on the streets of Vienna. Remapping the audience, you did 3 years before 2018, deploys similar strategies and explores similar topics around history, revolution, resistance, violence, and above all, images. So even some images from Past Futures already appear in Remapping the Origin. So I'd be curious that you tell us a little bit about your practice in general and the research you do, because in short, I think what these two films represent and what your work in general is really busy with the bygone histories and future possibilities of radical social change.
Yes, I mean, mostly with these two films, which are different films, but deal also with, let's say, a space like a city and what happens in the city over the last, in Poland, more like 100 years, in the other film 150 years. Basically, I'm interested in the change of a city through like century maybe, but also in the sense of what is still visible from this kind of history that is mostly violent, and how is it still influencing the present, although we sometimes don't see it anymore. And for the film in Poland, it was the starting point for this was kind of a newspaper article I found, and it was about Zamenhof, the inventor of Esperanto, and the change of the city from a very pluralistic city to a very homogenic, and how someone who was born in the city and invented a language to unite people, now the city became something like the capital, but a movement where there's a very strong right-wing movement. So, and this within 100 years. And then I was interested, okay, like what does this history, what is still visible of this history, but also like how is it rewritten and how is it constantly rewritten?
And I think what's important in the film, what reappears in there in terms of a reflection on the current political situation, maybe you can give us some background to it. There's this theater play that's based on a book entitled Bialystok, White Power, Black Memory, by Marcin Kaczki, and probably misspelled, but more or less. Could you give a bit of a background to him, and especially his conflict with the defamation laws in Poland?
Well, basically, the book, I think, was published, I don't know, maybe 2 years before the play, so maybe in 2015, I'm not sure. But the thing was, I just found that there is this play is happening in that was in 2016, I think, in April, but they just showed it one time and then it was stopped, which was very interesting. I couldn't film at that time. Because I missed it basically, but and then luckily there was another show they made in November for students, and I was asking like also why they just showed it one time, and basically they said it was not possible because of the actors from Warsaw, but it's a little bit strange. I mean, I was not going into very deep in this conversation, because I think it's very strange to make a play, make rehearsal for maybe a month and then you play it one time. There were some protests before the play, small ones, but mostly from radical groups, some Catholic groups, and etc. But I'm not sure actually if this protest was so strong that they skipped it. In general, I think the book of him got it was very much discussed in Poland. But when you know that Bialystok at the now, and even like from 2000 till now, it became very strong radical right-wing movement. It's not so easy like to especially for someone who lives in Poland to discover or discuss something like that. In my case, it was not a big problem, because when you come as an outsider, you also leave again. It's just I never had bad experience and something like that, except on the train back. But it was more like a funny coincidence with the local football hooligans in the train, because they went to, I mean, football in Poland is maybe everywhere, but it's really radical also from the hooligan movement. And then I was sitting with them in the train, and they asked me what I'm doing in Bialystok, and I said I make a film, and they said, we really want to see it because we love our city. And I was like, okay, yes.
Are there any comments, questions from your side to Johannes or about the program? Anita, do we have a microphone, or I better hand this one?
Johannes just got that. Wait, so you can maybe if you want to
share that. Yeah.
Now, I don't know what my question is, but there's a question that you ask in the scene in the military museum about fragility, and if I can't remember if the question that is asked is whether the recalling of these histories, how to recall or how to retell these histories without becoming fragile.
Mm.
And it just struck me that, you know, we've been talking this whole festival about resilience. So I was just trying to think about what is are resilience and fragility opposites? Is fragility undesirable? Is it, so it was just a thought rather than a question, but I'm curious if, I thought it was an interesting statement in the museum and an interesting question that was posed in the film. And I'm wondering where it came from, this question about fragility.
I don't remember exactly, but I think maybe it is not the opposite. It's just something that I think in my case for this film was also like to make a film, you have to be fragile in the sense of accepting that there are many different narrations and stories that are told, and you always miss something. But I think it's and basically within this kind of, or for me at least, to make a film like this is also kind of an act of resistance against this kind of like at the moment told narration of the far right movement in Poland, or also in Europe elsewhere. So, but yeah, I don't know.
There's two particular sequences in the film, and they're introduced by one of the most famous pictures of not only Russian film history, but global film history, with the mechanical eye or the camera eye of Chiga Vertov. And these short sequences work in a bit of a different way, how they're edited together. It's first a collection of eyes, and then of more recent footage of, let's say, the political conflicts and identity politics and so forth. Can you talk a little bit about that, and also your relation to Vertov? Why did Vertov never could make a film about Bialystok, but also about the eye and who's looking, these questions you always address because you make it so clear in your film that it's also the filmmaker that encounters this and is a sort of medium.
Well, maybe first, why he could never make a film. I think I read it in his diaries that it was just like forbidden. He always asked like to go back to his city, because I think he said also that what you know the best is the city where you were born, and why. But I think basically there's not much more about it. Why? I think it was censorship, and it was more at the end of his career when he wanted to make this film. But yeah, and well, regarding the eye, I mean, it's as in this kind of form that I use with the assistic method of having voiceover interviews, even like fictionalized scenes. I think it was in this film, especially because he was born there, but I think this coming from outside also and looking at a place is it's also a little bit violent sometimes. Even, I mean, for me, basically, I'm as a artist that works with documentary images, and it's the only way, but it's also something that you can push back to yourself and say like, well, how do I look on something, and what does the camera mean? Because I always exclude also things in this kind of and the two scenes are like, basically I started the one with the eye also because it is really interesting that there are a lot of cameras, which is, I think, in most cities at the moment. But it was also funny because we were sitting, and it's also in the film, outside and had a beer, but it's forbidden in Poland. And like in 5 minutes later, there was the police, and they just saw us with the camera. That's what I think. And also with the, I mean, later in the film, more during the process of editing, this kind of whole change in Europe with also like, again, the question of refugees, again, this question of like, how does Europe stand like as a whole to this, and the different opinions, and then I used also like this kind of part where, for me, it's like a marathon of different ideas coming together, and even like in the case of the history of a city or of a country that was always invaded and had some refugees. Like, yeah, it was. I think it fitted with this kind of gaze and very important historically image.
Okay, you want to join in?
Maybe I had a question of my own here. In the film, you have this moment in this city that used to be a town. I forgot the name, but with this woman inside of the bookstore, I guess, and also in the museum later, and they were quite darkly lit. Is there what's the reason behind this choice?
In the bookstore, it was basically, I'm mostly coming to a place and I don't want to interfere so much. And we were shooting on expired 16 material, which is also like not the best material sometimes to shoot because colors are shifting a lot. And I just let her stay there. And I thought looks a little bit mystical, but I think she also, she would not have moved a lot. I think it was really like the space of her. In the museum, it was basically, I never wanted to use this image because it was more like I wanted to go there to film, and this description was very long, and I shot a very short part and the light was very bad. So I mean, I used it mostly as a. I mean, even when you look at it like this, that it's so dark, it's a little bit strange also to see it. It's true, and it fits a little bit in this. Puppets that are inside, because they're also so dark. So it's like a place that is mostly not so much visited also. It's really like a strange place, and I also like as a museum, from my opinion. Yes, but it's sometimes also a technical thing.
Yeah, thank you, Johannes, and thanks. Yeah, I'm a great admirer of your work, and remapping the origins, I think, was very important for this year's festival program. Our how we deal with the smooth operations, and also understand here in particular history or our image of history as a sort of technological question to some extent, or at least, or more maybe towards what we want to explore here about systems and the terror of totalized and totalizing systems, and understand, of course, history is something that is not linear, that is not one thing, that is like a multiplicity of visions where you say like it's always something missing. And of course, that's a vision of history that's hard to bear for many. You want to unify it and make it clear and draw one identity of something that is exclusive. And yeah, and put all these questions in regard of images and image production. And then, yeah, with combining it with the last film, I hope you were not unhappy about it. I think that opened up another discussion, but also realize in what abundance of images we live, and what does that disguise then in that mere excess of things. And anyway, so I hope that was steered your thoughts and connects to things to come in the festival. And definitely, I think, to the next program, which we have the keynote of Vladan Joller, New Extractivism, which is a sort of mapping project as well, and really explores our relationship to data production and how that is an extractivist relationship. And yeah, that is in the main hall, and if I'm not mistaken, at 7:15, right? Yeah, check it out. Okay, but there's dinner in between and drinks. Thank you. Thanks, Johannes.